Hi there, I'm Sara Sheehan, and welcome to my podcast, Transformational Thinkers with Sara Sheehan. Today, I'm joined by Tamara Myles. Tamara is a professor, researcher, author, and international speaker with over 2 decades of experience helping leaders improve business performance. She is the author of The Secret to Peak Productivity, and her second book, Meaningful Work: How to Ignite Passion and Performance in Every Employee, is set to publish on April 1st, 2025. Tamara's insights have been featured in leading publications such as Fast Company, USA Today, and Business Insider. She has worked with clients such as Microsoft, KPMG, Tamara has a master's degree in applied positive psychology from the University of Pennsylvania. She teaches at Boston College and the University of Pennsylvania, sharing the science of human flourishing and flourishing. Tamara lives outside of Boston, 3 teenage children. Tamara, I'm so excited to welcome you to my podcast today and to talk about your fascinating book. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so delighted to be here.
Absolutely. And so, Tamara, your research has so many practical and pragmatic applications. And the critical value of finding meaning really came into the forefront following the pandemic. And although much of it is often hidden, the driving factor for nearly every thriving employee and high-performing team you found is finding meaning at work. Based on your research, what results did you see in connection with meaning and individual and team performance?
Yeah, meaningful work is so important. And like you said, I think the pandemic, it really changed how we work. And sometimes when we break routine, it gives us a little space. And I think during that time, people really started questioning why we work and if what they do every day even matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we spend about a third of our lives at work. We spend more time at work than we do with our family, our friends, and just about doing anything else. And so that time really should feel meaningful to us. Meaning at work shouldn't be your only source of meaning. Of course, we have community and our family and many other rich sources of meaning. But what we found is that when work is meaningful, we are more engaged, we are more productive, we are more likely to stay in the organization, we are more creative, we feel a higher sense of belonging, we have more friends. And so meaningful work has a lot of positive benefits, not only for us as individuals, we feel more fulfilled, we feel a higher sense of meaning in life. So a lot of individual benefits, but also organizational benefits. And I think a key point, something really important to know, is that these positive benefits, Sarah, they don't just stay at work. When we experience work as meaningful, we bring those positive benefits home with us. And so it affects the well-being of our family, of our friends, of our communities. And so I truly believe that increasing our meaning at work and increasing our well-being at work is the most powerful lever we have to increase well-being at scale globally. Because our workplaces are one of the last places where diverse people come together.
Absolutely.
People with different ideas, different experiences. And if we can all together experience more meaning at work, we can bring that home with us, and those effects ripple out in big ways.
That's tremendous. And so, as a follow-up, what have you found that individuals and teams that were not connected to meaning, what have your findings been in your research when you don't have that connection?
Yeah, when we don't experience meaning at work, we are much more likely to be looking for another job, much more likely to leave. We are much more likely to experience burnout, actually. One of the key pieces of meaning at work is this sense of growth and development that we're being challenged to learn.
Yes.
And research shows that actually most burnout comes from feeling stagnant, from working really hard without experiencing your own personal growth. And so we are more likely to burn out, more likely to be looking for another job, more likely to not feel fulfilled or engaged, to kind of not feel that we matter or that what we're doing even matters. Right. And it's really,
So this is very important to address in a workplace.
very important. I like to say that meaningful work is the upstream strategy that unlocks all the benefits that leaders really care about. So leaders are often trying to measure and increase productivity and engagement and retention, all those really important metrics. And what we find is if they go upstream and they focus on making work meaningful as the cornerstone of their leadership strategy, all these other outcomes are results of experiencing meaning at work.
That's very telling. And so it really puts an exclamation point on why leaders really need to focus on this and understand what tactics will actually work to move the needle in their workplace.
Yeah, and something that I like to say too, like sometimes it's really, we're speaking at like the rational kind of level, right? The intellectual level with the data. But I would love to take a moment, Sarah, to do like a little bit of a reflection, right?
Sure.
And maybe I'll have you do this reflection. So I would love for you to think about a time when work felt really meaningful. Whether, at your current role or at a previous role, but think about that specific moment, not just broadly, but a real specific moment. And who were you with or what happened?
Sure.
And what did you feel like? And then what did you feel like after? And did you do anything as a result of that? So are you willing to share that moment?
Sure. I have a number of different projects where, and these are consulting engagements, where I was a replacement. I came into a situation where several people had been in the role prior to me, but hadn't really connected with leadership in a way that could really move the needle forward on the plan and help the organization really start to move toward adoption of new behavior changes and the plan of what they needed to actually implement. And in those situations, I was able to come in and stabilize the relationship and get a plan in place that the client and leadership agreed with and wanted to move forward on. And so it was a very bonding experience with the client and with leadership, and it was extremely productive.
Yeah, so it sounds like you not only felt meaning through the contribution and the impact you had because you were able to move the needle, but also through the relationship and the sense of community that you were able to build, right? And so I think that it's really important to know the data and to know like intellectually how important meaningful work is. But I think we can all connect in an emotional level too. When we pause and think about those experiences of meaning that we have, that we have felt, that we have experienced in our own career and how great it feels. Right. And it's these moments of meaning that really add up to fuel us to continue doing the work that we're doing, to continue making an impact. And so I think it's great to know intellectually how important meaningful work is, but also to feel experientially the emotional value of meaningful work.
It goes beyond the independent experience and even the collective. Like when you look at a number of different experiences that were meaningful, it is definitely deeper than face value. It has a lasting impact on your perception of what you're doing and the value that you're providing. One of the fascinating points that I found in your research is that nearly 50% of an employee's experience of meaning at work is tied to what their leaders do or fail to do, as you so astutely point out. I definitely agree that great leaders cultivate the conditions that the individuals and their teams need to thrive, without question. Can you provide a high-level overview of how leaders can help their teams find meaning at work?
Yes, absolutely. So this was a really exciting finding for us because when we set out to do this study, and we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? There's many people who we deeply admire that do research on meaningful work that we learned from and drew from to do our study. But our study is the first one to look at the leadership impact. Most of the studies before ours were done from the individual perspective. So how can I experience my own work as more meaningful? And that's really important, right? Because you have agency. There are some things you can do to experience more meaning at work. But we were really curious about the leadership role and the leader's impact. And so we thought that impact was significant, but we were pretty shocked about how significant and how important it is. And like you said, almost half of our experience of meaning at work is directly related to what our leaders do or don't do. And so even if we know the practices to foster more meaning individually, it's really hard because we can only impact half of our experience. And so what we found, the practices that we found fall under what we call the 3 C's. And so it's community, contribution, and challenge. And so community is really about understanding how I matter, feeling that I matter in the organization, that people care about me, and that I belong, that I have a sense of belonging, that I have relationships at work. You mentioned earlier in your meaning story that you were able to build that relationship. And so this sense of community is foundational to meaningful work. The second C is contribution. And so where community says, I matter here, contribution says, my work matters here. And so it's understanding how what I do every day matters. What's the impact that I'm having? So that's the second C. And the third C is challenge. And challenge says, my growth matters here.
Absolutely.
Challenge is about learning, growing, developing. As humans, we are wired for growth,
yes.
right? And we want to know that somebody believes in us and our growth and is giving us these opportunities to stretch and learn. And so there's practices under each C that foster more meaning at work for individuals.
That's very insightful. Can you share with me what an employee can do if they need to rectify a situation where there is a lack of meaning in an appropriate way? Because it may be perceived differently by leadership if an employee tries to initiate the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question because a lot of times, we can't control what our leaders do or don't do. But what we find is you can lead from anywhere. When we talk about leadership, we don't necessarily mean power or hierarchical position. We mean influence.
Sure.
And so you have influence over the people you interact with. And so something you can do to increase meaning at work for yourself and for those around you is to start building those 3 C's. And so a simple question you can ask yourself for each one, I'll give you one question per C that can help you increase meaning at work for the people that you have influence around. And so for community is, did I connect with someone today? You can ask yourself this every day. Who did I connect with today? And then make an effort to really connect with people. And of course, this will increase meaning at work for you, but also for the people you connect with.
Right.
And that's something you can you can foster in your own circle of influence. You don't
For
need
sure.
to be, a leader with power to do that. For contribution, you can ask yourself, is anything better in the world because of what I did today? What is better in the world because of what I did today? And you can ask your colleagues that.
Right.
What impact did you have today? And really help people make meaning and make those connections, between what they do and the impact that it has. And then for challenge, it's about learning, right? So what did I learn today? Or did I learn something new today? And so asking, keeping those questions, that's just one simple question you can ask for each of the C. Of course, there's many practices and nuances, but sometimes, I feel like you read a book or you read a research article and it's so much to digest that I like sometimes to just boil it down. What's one question you can ask for each of the C?
I think having a bite-sized chunk makes it a little bit more manageable, and it takes some of the fear out around addressing something that has deep roots, if you will, that really does affect you in a truly immeasurable way. So the more we can make it bite-sized, the better.
I agree. And especially because sometimes we might feel discouraged. If we work for a manager that might really not make an effort to build any of these C's, we might feel really discouraged and hopeless. And I think having a question like this for each one gives you a little bit of control back. Okay, I can connect with someone today. Yeah, I can learn something new. And, and then these positive effects start creating upward spirals and can ripple out, and you can have impact and influence on your colleagues. And little by little, things get better.
Absolutely. And so moving forward, I found it very interesting and insightful that in your research, you found across generations that people view meaning at work as crucial to their happiness and their future at work. And that across generations, there's a lot of similarity between not only the value of meaning at work, but how they actually view fulfillment. And so when we take a step back, what are the differences across generations in how they want to view their work as having meaning?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because I think the popular discourse is very much Gen Z cares about meaningful work, but, you just got to work hard, just head down, you need to earn it and all of that. But what the research actually shows is that everyone cares about meaningful work and define it pretty similarly. So we all want that third of our lives that we spend at work to be meaningful, to mean something. Now, there's some nuance to that we found, and I will say that our sample size of over 2,000 people wasn't large enough to find significant differences. So I'll just caveat with that because we didn't have enough numbers in each generation to really, statistically significantly state these findings. So we're continuing the research.
Sure.
But what started to emerge is that while we all care about meaningful work and we all define it really similarly, some of the C's matter more for people depending on where they are in their career.
Yeah.
And so, for example, Gen Z cares a lot about all the C's, but mostly about challenge. They want to learn and grow and develop. And that makes so much sense because they are beginning in their career. They want to learn. They want somebody who believes in them, who mentors them. Gen X, which is my generation, cares more about contribution. What impact am I having? What is going to be my legacy? What am I doing that matters, that's going to leave a mark in the world? So there's slight differences, but everybody cares about all three C's. Everybody defines meaningful work very similarly, but there's slight differences. And another nuance, which is in the research more broadly, not not our research necessarily, is that these nuances aren't necessarily generational, but they are more about your position, your career stage. And so, most Gen Zers are in early career stage. And so they care mostly about learning and development and challenge. But you might have somebody who is a Gen X or a millennial that's early career, and they're going to care about that as well. So there's a lot of nuance and layers to the research. But I think the key point is every generation cares about meaningful work, and every generation defines it similarly.
That's very interesting, especially as we have so many multi-generational workplaces, and it's only increasing right now as some people stay in the workplace and you have newer, younger generations joining. It definitely is an interesting way to bring people together to talk about meaning and to address how everyone can find meaning in a unified way. That's very compelling. And so looking forward, one of the other points in your research that I found very interesting is that you found that the best leaders in the workplace are the ones that create and foster belonging. What are some examples that you found on how these leaders made a difference? What did they do?
That is so key. Community, feeling like we belong is a key driver of human well-being. The same alarms in our brains activate when we feel lonely or disconnected as they do when we feel hungry or thirsty. So it's a fundamental need.
Wow.
We are driven to belong, to be part of a group, to be, part of the tribe.
So interesting.
Yeah. And so belonging is all about feeling accepted and included, right? Rather than rejected or ignored. So we all want to be included in the decision making, in the water cooler conversation, in a meeting. Even if we're not going to contribute something, we want to be there. We want to listen in. And so, so to build belonging under, the community C, we found there's like two main pathways. One is what we call cultivate connection, and the other one is embrace authenticity. So cultivating connection really means taking the time to build relationships and to foster relationships across the organizations. We found that the organizations we study really care about individuals feeling connected, not just with the teams that they work with, but across teams, across functions, across the whole organization. And they do this in a myriad of ways. So by inviting different people to different meetings, by creating shared opportunities for shared experiences, whether that is a volunteering together, whether that is having a budget for people to organize, self-organize based on the regions where they work, now with hybrid and remote. So they do things like that. And then really being intentional about making individuals feel that that you care about them. One of the questions in our survey that we created is, my leader cares about me, right? That's like very simple. And a story that we use in the book that I think is just like a beautiful illustration of caring is the story of Devin Still. He was an NFL player with the Cincinnati Bengals, and he is actually one of the cherished members of our positive psychology community. He was a student at the Masters of Applied Positive Psychology a few years after we graduated. And he, while he was playing for the Cincinnati Bengals, he experienced a lot of personal hardship. He had a season-ending injury, and then had surgery, and then had complications from the surgery. It was like one thing after another. But then the worst thing happened a few weeks later when his 4-year-old daughter, Leah, was diagnosed with cancer. And that was horrible. And of course, heart-wrenching. She was 4 years old. And the Bengals did something remarkable to show that they cared. They released Devin from the team, but then they immediately reassigned him to the practice squad. And what that allowed was for him to stay home, because if he was part of the team, he would have to travel with the team.
Sure.
But if he's in the practice squad, he can stay home.
Yes.
And he could take care of Leah and, be with her through her treatment, but he was still getting paid and he was still receiving health insurance benefits and all of those things. So it's a simple act of caring. But then they went above and beyond. They created Devon Still jerseys. They started selling and promoting the Devon Still jerseys more. And all the money that they raised from the sales of his jersey were then donated to her cancer treatment. And within weeks, they raised over $1 million. And people were checking in on him, and he really felt buoyed by the community. He felt so like people cared, people had his back, And so these examples of simple things that leaders can do.
That is such a great example. That is so powerful.
It's amazing.
That is incredibly touching, and it really didn't take them that much to do that. But clearly there was some conversation there between them, and then maybe the team went to him and said, what do you think about this option? And having that kind of a conversation, that is so incredibly powerful to a team member. Incredibly.
It's so powerful. And I love this example because sometimes you think, like athletes and these sports, NFL, they made it. They have everything. But we all face struggles. Yeah. We all bring things to work. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be something huge like this. It can just be like simple practices like checking in with employees about their lives outside of work. Dr. Vivek Murthy, who is the Surgeon General currently, he talks a lot about loneliness, and he has a book that's amazing. And one of the practices that he instituted with his team is something he calls Inside Scoop. And so he was noticing that, they were all disconnected and people were remote and, we all have busy lives. And so what he did is at the start of every meeting, they have these like weekly all team meetings. And so he started this practice called Inside Scoop. So each week, someone else gets to bring in a picture, a personal picture, and share and spend the first 5 minutes of the meeting kind of just telling the story of that picture. And so it could be that, Sarah, if I was in that group, I might bring a picture of my son's latest wrestling match that he won. And I might talk about how amazing it is to see his discipline and his effort and how, he got 100 wins and how proud of him I am or something like that. But what that allows is for you to take a peek inside how I spend my time outside of work, but also for you to say, my brother wrestled in high school, and we might find things in common way outside of work that we might connect with. And so he said that practice, those like 5 minutes in each meeting, had a transformative effect on the team's sense of belonging and community. And so the beautiful thing is that it doesn't take long, and it doesn't take any budget, really. It just takes intention.
Exactly. That is very touching and very powerful. I also noticed in your research that positive performance feedback is better received than critical feedback. This is no surprise to me, having spent so many years in structured management consulting. Can you tell me more about your BEST model and how that seeks to create a positive path forward on feedback?
For sure. And I just want to be clear that I'm not advocating for never give critical or corrective feedback, because of course, sometimes that is necessary. But that's typically the only feedback we receive. Mm-hmm. And it's just not enough, because we can learn what not to do, but with negative feedback or critical or corrective feedback, we don't learn what we're doing right, that we can replicate and keep doing, right? And so it's really important for us to receive positive feedback from it can be from our colleagues, it can be from our leaders. And one of the things that the research finds is that when we receive any kind of acknowledgement or appreciation, so I'll share the best feedback model, and that's for more structured positive feedback. But even a simple like, hey, Sara, I really appreciate the thoughtful questions you asked me in this podcast. It really stretched my thinking and allowed me to really share some stories about the book. So that was really great. Thank you so much for the preparation you put into interviewing me today. So something like that, just a simple acknowledgement, can really increase the strength of your connection by up to 55%.
Wow.
So the beautiful thing about giving positive feedback is that not only it increases our sense of contribution, right? Because we understand the impact that we're having, but it also increases our sense of community and connection with each other.
For sure.
So it's really great to do. And so we developed the BEST feedback model. BEST is an acronym, and it stands for behavioral, explicit, strength-based, and timely. So behavioral is all about focusing on the actions somebody took. Like, what did I do right that I can replicate?
Right.
Because if you just say, hey, great job, you're like, but no, thanks, feels good, but I don't know what I did right? And so being really specific about the behavior, not the character, not like, oh, you're so great. Oh, awesome. I feel great, but why am I great? So being specific about the behavior. Explicit is being really explicit about the impact that behavior had on you, on the team, on the customer. So really highlighting the contribution. Then strength-based is focusing on the strengths that the person showed. And one great way to do strengths-based management, strengths-based feedback is with the VIA survey. So VIA is values in action, and it's a foundation of positive psychology.
Really?
It's a free survey that's available online, and anyone can take it. And it shows the results, shows the 24 universal strengths. So the VIA is the only real evidence-based and research-backed strength survey out there.
I'm going to go check it out. I've not heard of it.
It's amazing, and it's the foundation of positive psychology. Positive psychology it's a critical part of how we practice, how we are positive psychology practitioners and how we apply the results. But these are strengths that, are found across time, across cultures, across religions. They really scoured the literature and went to remote tribes and really found what are the qualities that people most value and admire in others. And so there's 24 strengths.
Okay.
And so some of them are creativity and authenticity and love of learning, curiosity, honesty, spirituality. So there's and these are character strengths. But so when you highlight somebody's strengths, it makes them feel seen. It lets them know that their contributions matter. So it could be like you showed great creativity by providing those in-depth profiles of potential customers and going above and beyond the assignment. So you're highlighting a strength that they showed, a contribution. And then timely is about when to give the feedback. And as soon as possible after the event occurred or the thing that you're going to, highlight occurred is better. You don't want to save something for your review is coming up at the end of the year.
Right.
So I'll give you that positive feedback in 6 months.
Right.
It's still going to be great, but it's not going to be as effective as doing it right after it happens.
Agreed.
Right. And so behavioral, explicit, strength-based, and time.
That's very helpful. I'm really excited to hear about the values in action, and I'll be checking that out. I'm very familiar with Clifton's Strength Finder, which I'm sure you are as well. But I'll be fascinated to see the difference in the strengths that are included in their model.
Yeah, the VIA measures what they call the character strengths. So these are really parts of our personality that light us up, that make us feel seen, that are part of who we are.
Right.
And when you do your report, you will notice that they're ranked from 1 to 24. And I want to kind of tell you a couple things, because you and some listeners might also go take it. And so some things to note is that the top 5 to 7 strengths in your report are what's called signature strengths. Mm-hmm. And those signature strengths usually fit 3 criteria that we call the 3 E's. And so the first one is that it's easy. So it feels really easy for you to use it. It comes really easily to you, so much so that sometimes you don't even recognize it as a strength, because you think, oh, well, that's so easy.
It's natural.
Everybody has that. It's pretty natural, right? The other one is that it's essential to who you are. Like, you could not imagine having to go a day without using that strength. So for me, love is my first one, which is all about the importance that I give to relationship building, to being warm, to caring about people. Now, if you took that strength away from me and you said, Tamara, for 24 hours, you cannot ask people how they are. You cannot build relationships. You can't be warm and genuine. You can't hug your children.
It'd be horrible.
I'm almost crying. Like, that would be horrible. So it's essential to who you are. And then the third E is that it's effortless. You said natural. It comes pretty easily to us. And so those are the 3 E's. And so that's important to know. So the top 5 to 7 usually fit that criteria. And something else to note is that, as humans, we have a negativity bias. And so most of us go right to number 24. And we say, oh, I'm so bad at that. And so it's really important to note that the VIA does not measure weakness. It only measures our strengths in relationship to ourselves and to each other. And so if a strength comes up 24 for you, it doesn't mean, so for me, and it's so sad, like the strength that comes up, number 24 for me always is appreciation of beauty and excellence. And I feel like I really appreciate beauty and excellence. Sometimes I watch videos of, people like the Olympic videos and the stories of struggle and how people excelled, and I cry.
Sure.
And I love it. But it's not as essential to me as love and building relationships. And so I might still be higher in appreciation of beauty and excellence than someone else that has it at number 13, for example, because it's only measuring it in relationship to my other strengths.
That's super helpful.
Those are very important things to note about the survey. So I can't wait to hear your results. You'll have to share
Absolutely.
with me.
I'll be glad to. I think knowing more about where your natural strengths are is only going to help you show up better every day, because you're making sure that you're using the best tools in your toolbox.
And we're bringing the best of who we are to our work, to our, relationships, to how we show up every day. So knowing our strengths can be transformative to how we show up, for sure. And I think I messed up with the 3 C's because I said effortless twice. The 30 is energizing. Okay. Energizing. And so when we use that strength, it energizes us. It makes us come alive. And people can tell.
Yes.
Like, if I get to use my creativity, all of a sudden I'm talking faster. My hands are moving. I light up. And so it's effortless, essential, and energizing.
That's excellent. That's very helpful. Is there one thing that you found in your research that surprised you the most?
I would say there were a few things that surprised us. And maybe the thing that surprised us the most is the importance of beginnings. When we set out to study meaningful work and the leadership practices that make work meaningful, we really thought we would find practices on like the day-to-day work. And we did, and the everyday work and meetings and all the things and building relationships and thanking people. What we didn't expect to find, though, is how important it is to make work meaningful from the moment you're interviewing someone. So hiring and onboarding in the beginning of a relationship with a new employee, a new team member, really sets the tone for how meaningful their work is going to be, for the rest of their life in the organization. So beginnings really, really matter. And most people right now don't have a really meaningful hiring and onboarding process. And so that's that's an organizational structural thing more than a leadership practice thing, but not hard to implement. So instead of onboarding somebody by giving them, a million HR videos to read and a new computer and saying good luck, what if you spent a little bit of time talking about the rituals that you do together, fostering that sense of belonging? What if you took the time to get to know them and then pair them up with an onboarding buddy or someone internally who can help them navigate those first few days, and somebody they can ask questions
Absolutely.
to, somebody who can help introduce them to people. So again, really simple practices. Not easy, because if it was easy, like everybody would be doing.
Yes.
Yeah. But they're simple. They just require a little thought and intention.
That's very, very interesting, because I find so many organizations, they may look at onboarding as a process, and they may even have a platform that manages onboarding where you can see where you are in the process, but it's the personal touch that is missing in so many.
Can I tell you a story
Sure.
that perfectly illustrates this? And it's a personal story. So about 8 years ago, when my kids were young, they were 10, 9, and 7, we made a really difficult decision as a family to move towns. So we were really happy in the town that we were. That's where the kids were born. Our roots were all there. We had community. We had a sense of belonging. But my husband had gotten a different job, and he was commuting long hours, and it was really, stuck in traffic. He was missing out on the things that matter to us, family dinners and being able to coach. And so we made the really difficult decision to move. We spent months and months researching. We found the new community that we're in now, Concord. And it seemed like it checked all the boxes, but you don't really know, right, until you move. But we moved, and we moved in the summer, right before school was about to start, because we wanted the kids to start the school year already, instead of disrupting their school year. And so we had heard that the schools were great. And of course, we knew that that would really matter for their experience if they were able to make friends right away and integrate into the school. So we had high hopes for the schools, but we didn't know. And then we had enrolled the kids in the school, and I had filled out the forms about them so they could get placed in the right classes. And about 2 weeks before school started, I got an email from the principal of the elementary school. My kids were in going into 5th, 4th, and 2nd grade. So they were all in the same elementary school. And I got an email from the principal, Mrs. Fernandez. And she said, hi, welcome to the school. As part of, your onboarding, she didn't call it onboarding, but as part of welcoming you into the school, we have this thing called the New Families Program. And so we want to offer you a tour of the school, bring the kids in before school starts so they can get a lay of the land and a sense of where they're going to be and ask questions. And so she took us, on a tour, and it was amazing. The kids were getting excited, and they were asking questions, and how many recesses do we have a day, and where do we buy lunch, and do you have pizza, all the things that matter to kids. And so we were like, oh, that's great. And then as we were leaving, she said, the next thing we're going to do is introduce you to a family that has a kid in the same grade that's going to be in their class.
Amazing.
And then maybe you can have a play date or something before school starts.
Are you kidding?
And so she introduced us to 3 families, one for each kid. But it wasn't random, Sarah. She had read their the forms that I had filled out about them, and she selected a kid that she thought would have similar interests or be a good friend to them.
That's remarkable.
Oh my gosh, even now thinking about it, I get so emotional about it. It was such a lifeline for us. It made all the difference. A week later, we met with the families. The kids all now had a friendly face for the first day of school, somebody to sit with at lunch, somebody to go out to recess with. And we had a lifeline to call and be like, how do you sign up for dance?
Right.
What's the best sushi in town? Do you have any babysitters that you recommend? It was
transformative.
Amazing. transformative. And one of the families has become like one of our best friends. We travel with them. The girls were very close all through elementary, middle, and high school. And so that act of kindness and generosity made all the difference for
That
us.
is a great example. That is a great example. Tamara, I can't thank you enough for our conversation today. It's full of wonderful insights that are incredibly practical and pragmatic, and I know that it's going to make a difference. Before we close today, can you share with me how my listeners can find you?
Yes. So I am on social media. So the best way to interact with me is on LinkedIn. I always post on there like new research findings or anything interesting that's coming up in the work or research that we're doing. So LinkedIn, Instagram, also on my website, tamaramyles.com, and it's MYLES. It's a great place. And then finally, on the book's website, which is makeworkmeaningful.com. That's a fun website. You can take the assessment from the study. You can learn all about the research and my co-author, Wes. So those are some great places to find me.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Tamara, and I know that your research is going to make a huge difference in the world, and I'm so very excited for you about your book being published.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.
Excellent. Well, I hope you have a great day.
You too.
Wow. What an amazing conversation I just had with Tamara Myles on her cutting-edge research on finding meaning at work. The 3 key takeaways from our enlightening conversation today include leadership's role in meaningful work. Tamara's research emphasizes that nearly 50% of an employee's sense of meaning at work is linked to their leader's actions. Leaders should focus on the 3 C's: community, contribution, and challenge to foster a meaningful workplace. Cross-generational similarities. Contrary to popular belief, people across generations all value meaningful work similarly. While there are nuanced preferences, such as Gen Z prioritizing growth, the core desire for meaningful engagement is universal. Powerful beginnings. The initial interactions during hiring and onboarding can set the tone for how meaningful an employee will find their work. Creating a welcoming and connected environment from the start is crucial. By all means, be on the lookout for Tamara's upcoming book, Meaningful Work: How to Ignite Passion and Performance in Every Employee. It's set to publish in April of this year, and it's definitely one to watch out for and pre-purchase if you can. Thanks so much for listening today. And as always, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe so you never miss an episode.